All right, let's just dive right in, shall we? We are going to tackle a question that really gets under your skin, sitting right at that crossroads of deep spirituality and, let's be honest, our deepest fears. We're talking about the word tantra, and today we're asking the most provocative question there is. Is it actually satanic?
You know, when most people hear the word tantra, one of two images usually pops into their head. On one hand, you've got this modern, kind of new agey version. You're thinking Sting, you're thinking sacred sex workshops in California, incense, and intimacy. But then there's this other face. A much older and frankly way scarier one. The one that whispers about black magic, rituals in cremation grounds with skulls and blood, maybe even talking to demons. It's either all love and light or it's absolutely terrifying. Today, we're going to pull both of those ideas apart. So, how are we going to do this? Simple. First, we'll face that Tantra taboo head on. Then, I'm going to introduce you to our guide for this journey. After that, we'll look at his incredible map of the spiritual world, and this is where it gets really good. We're going to decode the soul's anatomy. Finally, we'll see how you can actually put this into practice and wrap up with a look into what he calls the unseen sub-basement of our own minds.
Okay, let's start with the elephant in the room. The whole reason we're even having this conversation is because, let's face it, the traditional symbols and images of Tantra can look genuinely horrifying.
And you know what? That fear is totally valid. We are talking about goddesses holding axes and swords and even their own severed heads. There are actual historical accounts of animal sacrifice and rituals using skulls from cremation grounds. So is it any wonder that when the British colonial powers showed up, they took one look at all this and just slapped the label satanic on it? I mean, it completely shatters that peaceful, clean, Lululemon yoga vibe we're so used to in the West. So, to navigate a landscape this complex, and yeah, this intimidating, we need an expert. Someone with a truly unique perspective who has spent a lifetime dedicated to what he calls the science of the soul.
Our guide is Osman, who you might know as the blind Muslim yogi. He's a master bioenergy healer. Now, here's something really important you need to know. He only became permanently blind very recently, in May of 2023. So when you hear him describe the spiritual world with such incredible visual detail, it's because he's drawing from a whole lifetime of memories of sight, now combined with a powerful inner vision.
And his experience, well, it's just immense. We're talking a full 50 years of deep, advanced practice in yoga and meditation. He reached his first state of superconsciousness, or samadhi, when he was just 19 years old. And he hasn't just stuck to one tradition. He pulls wisdom from the Far East, the Middle East, and the West. He uses all this knowledge to help people in the most critical situations, terminal illnesses, intense recovery, using a form of telepathic healing he says is based on quantum entanglement. So with all that as a background, let's look at how he actually sees the world. Because to get why Tantra isn't satanic, you first have to understand his map of reality, the geography of the spirit. He breaks it all down into 3 simple tiers. The middle world, that's us, right here, our everyday physical reality. Below us, you have the lower worlds. Think of it as the basement. That's the realm, he says, is full of demons, ghosts, and the kind of entities that cause curses. And then, above us, are the higher worlds, the penthouse. And this is the key. This is where the tantric deities live. And this right here, this is the heart of the whole argument. For Osman, satanic has nothing to do with scary-looking symbols. It's all about direction. A satanic practice is anything that intentionally engages with those lower worlds, anything that pulls your energy down. But Tantra, he says, by its very mechanics, is the exact opposite. Its entire purpose, despite all the intimidating pictures, is to pull your energy up from the base of your spine toward higher consciousness. It's all about which way the energy is flowing. And that leads us to probably the biggest mind-blowing revelation in this entire explainer. These goddesses, these so-called deities, they aren't just characters in some ancient story. According to this system, they are a literal map of your own body, your own soul's anatomy. Okay, so let's take the most shocking example possible, the goddess Chinnamasta. The image is of her holding her own severed head while 3 jets of blood are literally spurting from her neck to feed both herself and her followers. I mean, on the surface, that is pure horror movie stuff. Which just begs the question at the center of all this, right? Why on earth would a tool for spiritual growth, for enlightenment, look so unbelievably horrifying? And the answer is, it's a metaphor, a really, really powerful one. Chinnamasta represents the throat chakra, our center of truth and expression. The decapitation isn't a physical act. It is the symbolic severing of the ego mind, you know, that non-stop chatterbox in your head, so that the pure, unfiltered truth from your heart can finally come out. The shocking image is meant to convey the radical, intense freedom that comes when you liberate yourself from your own thinking mind.
And this idea applies to all of them. Take a look. Dhumavati, the goddess of the heart chakra, is shown as a grieving widow. Why? Because a truly open heart has to have the capacity to hold grief, to process loss. Or Bagalamukhi, for the solar plexus, they call her the paralyzer. She represents the power to paralyze your own inner critic, your self-doubt. You see? These aren't evil beings, they're incredibly sophisticated psychological tools. So that's the theory. But how do you actually use these tools? Well, the good news is it doesn't necessarily mean you have to go live in a cave for 30 years.
Now, to get to this level of understanding takes an almost unbelievable amount of dedication. At certain points in his life, Osman has practiced for up to 18 hours in a single day. He calls it sharpening the sword. It's that kind of intense, lifelong work that allows him to do what he does, and it's why his one-on-one healing services are, of course, a premium offering. But his real mission is to make this ancient science accessible to everybody. He spent his life simplifying these incredibly complex protocols. He shares a ton of in-depth techniques for free on his Blind Muslim Yogi YouTube channel, and has even created a free 5-minute yoga and meditation program that you can download right from his website, which is yogawellness786.com, so you can get started without spending a dime.
And of course, it is so important to say this clearly. This work is meant to be a complement to, not a replacement for, conventional medical treatment. The goal is always to support the whole person, working alongside whatever other treatments you might be receiving.
Okay, that brings us to our last section, and it ends with a final, really thought-provoking question that turns this entire spiritual map back on ourselves. So we usually think of the root chakra, right at the base of our spine, as the foundation, the ground floor of our being. But what Osman points out is that in these ancient maps of the soul, there's also a sub-basement. Below the root chakra, there are another 7 chakras, 7 levels that go down, and those are the gateways to those lower worlds we talked about at the beginning.
Which leaves us with this final and pretty challenging question for you to think about. If Tantra and other spiritual sciences are conscious technology designed to pull your energy up, what are the things in your own daily life, the habits, the addictions, the patterns of thinking that are unknowingly taking you down? What in your life is opening the doors to that sub-basement? It's a really profound question to ask yourself about the true direction your life is heading.